for the courage of the fearless crew, the minnow would be lost. The minnow would be lost.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.
Dawn, I'm curious to know how you broke into the entertainment world in the first place. At one time you were crowned Miss Nevada. Were you using pageants as a way to break into acting?
Absolutely not. I was the furthest thing from my mind. I was a pre-med major, and I took a theater course because I couldn't take any PE courses. My knees dislocated, so after archery and canoeing, I couldn't learn to do anything. So I decided to take a theater course for fun. And my professor, I went to a women's college, Stevens College in Missouri, and he said, "You're really good at this. You ought to major in it." I went, "Oh, are you kidding?" So I transferred to the University of Washington, which had a great med school and a great theater department. And I took theater courses. And halfway through the courses, the Nevada Seropnibus Club asked me to run for Miss Nevada. And I thought, there's no way in the world that Miss Nevada would be Miss America with all the gambling and prostitution and divorce. We are not the typical American girl, but I thought it would be a good experience to get up and do a dramatic scene in front of a lot of people. So having no concept that I would win, I won Miss Nevada, and I went on to the Miss America pageant. But when I made the decision when I graduated, I said, okay, I'm going to give myself 2 years. And if I don't get a job in the acting profession, I'll go back to med school. And I analyzed pretty critically New York or Los Angeles. At that time, it's the only place you could earn a living. And everything in New York was musical comedy. So I don't sing. So I said, okay, I'll go to Los Angeles and give myself a trial. And I walked into L.A. and got an agent right away, a small little agent, because of my experience in theater. And I did a play with Mercedes McCambridge and Leon Ames and got great reviews. And then started making the rounds with studios. And I went to Warner Brothers, and Jack Warner and I had a wonderful conversation. He called my agent, and he said, "She's intelligent." We actually had a conversation. I didn't even bring up Miss Nevada. I just think that's silly. But they put me under option for contract. At that time, they had contract players. So I did all the shows, Maverick and Surfside 6 and 77 Sunset Strip and all of that. So then I had about 9 shows under my belt, which then moves you on to the next level of being able to audition. And I just was very, very lucky.
Yeah. Now, of course, everyone associates you with Marianne, but what people might not know is you beat out some pretty tough competition to get that part, right?
Well, they keep talking about Raquel Welch audition, but there were about 300 people. We were 3 replacements. Ginger, Professor, and Marianne were 3 characters that originally the pilot had been school teachers. So CBS said, write other roles. So they wrote these 3 roles, and they were casting everybody, all 3 of us. So there were about 300 people at CBS for about a week. And the very last day, Raquel Welch walked in, I was told, to audition for Marianne. Actually, she'd have been a better Ginger than a Marianne. But I was much more typical of the role than she would have been. She was too sexy and glamorous,
Well, you were pretty sexy, too, and you still are. So, of course, Marianne was always famous for her coconut cream pies. And being you were the island cook, you came out with Marianne's Gilligan's Island Cookbook a little while ago, which is still available on Amazon. How fun was it to put a book like that together? Because it just wasn't about recipes, right?
No, it was a lot of, and actually there were 3 or 4 the same. There was an Aunt Bee, Ken Beck kind of put the whole idea together, so there were several similarities. I went back with my family recipes and the cast and my travels and intermingled it with stories. I'm working on a cookbook now for next spring that's really good home cooking. Recipes my mother, we all made up and learned when I was a kid, and the stuff that Marianne would be cooking, a different thing altogether. It was kind of a novelty, and people are still buying it. I get asked to autograph them all the time. Well, I was very proud of it. My mother and I worked very hard. She was 89 or something, and we worked very hard at putting all those recipes together.
Mm-hmm. I think the only thing that can beat those coconut cream pies is those short shorts you came to be known for wearing.
First ones ever on television. They weren't even allowed until I wore them. I had to cover my navel. As a matter of fact, I don't have children, and I lost my mother several years ago, and I was going through my trunk the other day, and there were the shorts. And I remember we were canceled. Sherwood called us and said, we're not going on anymore. And I said, I've got the shirts. He said, well, they're yours. so I thought, I don't have any kids. Who's going to want them? So I'm putting them up for auction. I'm kind of excited to see if anybody wants them. Have no idea what I wore underneath them. They were so brief. But I helped design them to cover my navel and make my legs look longer and blah, long before Daisy Dukes.
Oh, yeah, and that's what spurred Daisy Dukes, I'm sure. You talk about those shorts going on auction. What do you think the starting bid's going to be on those?
I don't know. The company's profile and history, and they do a lot of, genie bottles and that kind of stuff, so I have no idea. They're putting a catalog out. I guess if you go on the web, you can see profiles and history, and I guess you get to, I don't know much about bidding online. Mm-hmm. I know they're going to do it in person, but you can bid online, and I think, since we're in 30 languages all over the world, there may be somebody in Saudi Arabia that thinks it would be kind of cool to have them. Oh, I don't know. I'm fascinated. I hope I get more than $10. That's all I can say.
Does Marianne come with them?
Well, she may show up. If it's a yacht around the world, I might just come along.
Now, you also got a new book out right now, or getting ready to come out, called A Guide to Life, What Would Marianne Do? What kind of book are we talking about here, Marianne?
I am very proud of this because I've had fans now for 40 years come up and tell me what the show meant to them, and that they were abused as a kid, or the brothers and sisters used to run home from school and watch it. And we've never been off the air since 1967. We're in 30 languages all over the world. So I thought, people come up to me and confess things. And I thought Marianne would have been your best friend. She'd have been your prom date. She'd have been the marrying kind. And there was something about the chemistry with all of us on the island trying to get along together, which is what the world is going through today. So I just thought, I was raised in Reno, Nevada, which of course is about as far from Marianne as you could get. But I was raised with Marianne values. My mother knew where I was every single second. And I was thinking the other day when I was writing, and I thought, well, why didn't I sneak out? And why didn't I swear and get drunk at home and all the things that kids are doing? But I was raised with that. I don't want to say strict. She just knew. She knew what was right and what was wrong, and she taught me. Mm-hmm. And I thought maybe their families today have such a difficult time. They're interracial. They're divorced people living together with children of other parents, etc. And both parents have to work. It's much more difficult than when I grew up. And I think I have some kind of sage advice. It's not a goody two-shoes kind of book. It's a book about saying, you need to believe in yourself, and you as a young person, you're making your life now. What goes out there now goes all around the world, what you're telling people, and it's up to you at a certain point to start to take assessment of yourself. And you know what really happened? I'm babbling here. But no. As I was working with my co-author, because I don't type very well, I said one of the things that I was doing as I was growing up, and I don't know, 8th or 9th grade, I became a debater. I was on the debate team, which is really kind of cool because you have to learn both sides. And you don't know until you go up for the debate which side you have to defend. And that's my life. I realize now that's how I look at life. You'll tell me something, and then I'll say, okay, now what's the worst that could happen? Okay, now tell me the other point of view. And that's the way I look at life. And I'm thinking all those things that we go through junior high school and high school, the theater that you do or the chemistry thing that you worked out, all that is forming who you're going to be. So it was kind of enlightening to myself as I wrote the book, and I think it's a fun read. It's a light read. It's not there's stories of my life, but it isn't an autobiography. It's easy to read, male and female, and I'm just hoping that parents buy it, give it to their kids, give it for Christmas. I'm very proud of it.
I'm interested to find out what you think about just kind of a comparison between comedies back then, like Gilligan's Island, which was just iconic, to stuff nowadays that they have on television.
Well, I tell you, it's tough. I mean, it really is tough. Anything goes almost. So you have to keep up. And I was talking to an interviewer, and I said, one of my favorite shows is 2.5 Men. And they said, are you kidding me? I said, no, I'm not kidding you, because I think the comedy timing, it's quite risque. But when I met Charlie before he left the show, I said, I want to ask you two questions. Do you really play the piano? He said, no. I said, well, I buy it. I mean, it looks like you really are playing. And the second thing is, how could you say these lines in front of that 8-year-old little boy? And he said, well, he's a really nice kid, Dawn. He's just learning to drive. And the words went right over his head. He said the other day, he said to me, that's what you meant when you said blah, 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 blah. So I guess whatever, he had good parents or something. It's tough now, but you can't get away from it. So what you need to do is raise your children with either with the humor of it, or not to take it seriously, or what. I'm not a mom, so I know it's tough. But you can't get away from it. Everything's on television. We're bare-breasted. We're doing all kinds of things. Marianne couldn't even show her navel in her shorts.
Have you seen Naked and Afraid?
No, what is
There
that?
is a show where they put people on islands and stuff like that, naked and afraid, for them to survive.
Oh my! Like the Survivor, sort of.
Oh yeah. It's the craziest thing I ever seen.
I wonder how many people audition.
They got to be pretty
Are you
brave.
up for it? Have you signed up? Are you going out?
I don't think they want my body on there.
Oh, well, I just think that. I mean, now we all know what the body looks like. We've seen enough of it. Let's put some clothes
Yeah,
on.
that's the truth. You know, you've been in so many TV shows, you've been on stage, but you're always going to be associated with Marianne. Did it ever bother you that that's who you are? That, you know, that's how the public sees you. Do you embrace that?
I embrace it with the public because I'm loved, and everybody says some lovely things. It's very difficult career-wise to try to break that image. I mean, the first thing I did after Gilligan's Island was go out in the play The Owl and the Pussycat, playing a hooker. I wanted to branch out. I just did Eleanor in Eleanor of Aquitaine in Lion in Winter last summer. It's very hard for them to think about me as other than Marianne. I kept thinking, the older I get, it's going to make a difference. Well, it has, I'd say, the last 10 years. But it was tough to break that image.
So before we start to wrap this up, is there anything else you'd like to mention that maybe we haven't covered? I know you're going to be on the Today Show pretty soon.
Yes, on the 17th of September.
That's just coming up right around the corner, right?
Yeah, and I'm doing everything in New York with the book signings, and then I'm touring the country. And if you want to buy my book, you can go to my website, and if you want it personalized, I'll do that. It's dawnwells.com. But what I like is meeting the people and talking to the people, and I'm anxious to get feedback. You obviously haven't read it yet. I'm anxious to talk to somebody who's read it. I was at a library conference, and I'll hurry because I know you're on time limit. But one of the authors who's written, by the name of Ace Collins, has written several books, and I saw all his books at my library at the airport. And he called me after he read it, and he said, I loved your book. Your book is full of gems. And here is a man who is an author himself, and I thought that tells me something, that it's worth reading. Mm-hmm. It's not going to change your life, but it's worth reading. One of the things I talk about is alcohol. You can't tell a kid not to drink today. That's the last thing you can say. But one of the things that my dad said to me, here's the, do you want to try it? Here, take a shot of bourbon. Well, of course, you hate a shot of bourbon. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a bit interested anymore. However, know what you're drinking. Know it's a bourbon and Coke or a rum and Coke as opposed to a punch at a fraternity house. You don't know what you're getting in a pill or drug.
Oh, yeah.
So you as a child or as a semi-adult can start making your own rules. And I think that's kind of what we need to do today because parents are so busy.
Well, Dawn, I want to thank you once again for joining us on the show. It's been a real pleasure. It's been an honor, something that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. And I wish you best of luck on your new book and all your future endeavors.
Bless your heart. Thank you. And I hope you have a great life from now on.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Bye-bye.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.